weekly pairing session. This week's going to be a slightly little bit different. It's just me so far. Anyone else is welcome, of course, to join me. I'm going to be talking through a specific issue that I've been encountering with regards to figuring out whether a contribution is a first one or not when looking at a merge request and the API. So join me while I dig through some code. It just could be an interesting experience to figure out how to find different things inside the code base. So I'm going to get sort of started with sharing my code. Well, sharing the issue to begin with. So let's get busy with that. Sorry, just bear with me while I figure out my different windows here. Alrighty, let's see. Can I share a specific window? Yes, I can. Okay, so it should be sharing momentarily. Just give it a moment to kick in. Hopefully something's happening. Or do I have to switch that on over here? There we go. Cool. So this is the issue I'm busy working on at the moment. And really what it comes down to is we want to look at when we have a first contribution from a community member making a contribution, we want to follow that the merging of that MR up with a message from GitLab bot to say thank you, new contributor, for contributing, and let's get started working on your second contribution. The specifics of the message will tweak as we go along, but right now I need to take a look at when a merge request is a first contribution merge request, and then how do we follow that up once that merge request then goes through and gets merged. So I've started doing a little bit of investigation on that. So currently there is a first contribution field inside the merge request when we look at the reply back from the API. And what I did to see how this field works, I created a new project, and then using another account forked that project, because the first contribution field only applies to contributors who are not a part of your project. So I forked that and submitted 2 MRs. Both MRs currently, or at that point, have the first contribution field set to true. So the next step was to then go and merge one of those, and I expected the merge request that was merged to be then showing as true and the other one showing as false. However, that was not the case. And if you look here, these were my these were my API calls into the API on the project for both merge requests when both merge requests were open and the first contribution field was showing as true. Then I went ahead and merged just the one MR, and now neither of them are showing as true. At that point is when we want to send that message, but now we no longer have that field showing as true. So I wanted to delve into the code now to try and figure out where this first contribution field comes from in the API. So let's go ahead and look at the API. Let's go ahead and look at the field in the model and how that field actually gets created. And hopefully I can figure out exactly where that is and potentially go and make a change in the product so that we can, so that what we expect after that first merge request is merged is that first contribution will still show true for the first one, and thereafter all other merge requests will be false for that particular contributor. So I've got my code here. So let me just change my screen share. Share that window. Cool. So I've got my VS Code open here. Might need to just make this a little bit bigger. Okie dokie. So what do I have in terms of so let's start by digging around in the API for where we are serving the entity around merge requests, and that lives under lib API entities. And this is really an exploratory thing. I don't know the answer here, so I'm just going to go and have a poke around at the code and see if I can uncover a little bit of what's happening in the background. So we've got lib API merge request. Okie. And so in our merge request, these are the fields that are being exposed. So we've got subscribed, changes count, first deployed to production. And here we go. So here we've got a first contribution. So first contribution, expose first contribution as first contribution if, now this is a Lambda syntax here, which I don't fully understand, but that's all good. Where does this options come from? There's a question also, and so we've got this include first contribution symbol here. Okay, that's interesting. So this is on the merge request API piece, but that is based, I'm assuming, on our merge request field. So let's have a look. Let's just see if we can open up our merge request model. And where is app models? Merge request. So in our merge request model, do we have something like a first contribution? We do indeed. Okay, so this looks like the first contribution method that we're exposing here. So return false if, so, okay, so that says if we are more than guessed, that'll always be false. So we will never show first contribution if the author is a member of the project, which is fine. We kind of expected that. Then we've got, okay, not project merge requests, merged exists. Okay, so this one says that on our project, for all of our merge requests that are merged, is there one that exists with this author ID? And then negate that with a not, which is nice because that shows us while our merge request is open, that merge request is, well, that any of those merge requests are true. But the problem with that is that as soon as we go and merge that one merge request, then all of a sudden we have a problem where we have where none of those are then true. So that becomes a total problem. So now the question is, how would we go about changing that? Can we go about changing that? We would need to then store somewhere in that merge request potentially an attribute that says this is the first contribution from a contributor, and then when we do this check to see if the merge request is open, check to see if there haven't been any other merged. If the merge request is closed, is this the first one? Now, that's interesting. So possibly something we could store in the merge request itself. Possibly we could store somewhere else. So let me go ahead and just start sort of hacking away at this. Now, large disclaimer here, this is going to really be taking a hack away at the problem here. So let me just make sure that my GDK is actually up and running while I'm talking here. So on my GDK screen, just make sure that my GDK is up to date. Let's make sure that my GDK is running. Okay, so how would I do that? Let's have a look at what the database looks like. And the database in this case, here's our merge requests table in the database, and just having a look at what we've got inside here. Fields. We're not storing that first contribution anywhere because that is currently being calculated dynamically by the model, as we figured out here. Where was that now? Okay, so we're storing that, well, we're calculating that field dynamically currently when we call that. So we're not storing it anywhere in here. It's not a massively wide table, but it's possibly something we could potentially look at doing here, and that would be adding a new column into the table to say, is this a first contribution? That column could then, for 99% of them, will probably be false, and then for a few would then be true, and that would only set as true to that user's first contribution to the to that project. So how do we go and add a new column? Well, we would need to add a new migration. And let me just, so if I've only added a column once before, so just bear with me while I figure this out. Adding database columns. So I'm just going to the developer docs here, and what I will do is I will just share a link on the chat. This is the link that I'm busy looking at. And where do I go and add a, oh, then there's a section talking about migrations here. And how do I add a migration? There's a Rails helper that takes care of that for us. So the trick is just what is the runes for adding a new column. Right, so the magic is Rails. Should do the magic for us. How's my GDK update going? It's going slowly but surely in the background. Let's see what happens here. Okay. Fair. Install. Wondering how bundle install is going to work with a parallel GDK update. We'll find out. Yeah, I think this is actually only my second merge request making table changes, possibly, maybe one or two more, but not many. It's not something I've had to do too many times, but it's always nice to be able to explore, and now we've got a record of it, which is cool too. Let's try that. Generate again. That should tick away. Oh, that's not nice. That's okay, that's probably because my GDK is currently down because it's busy building in the background. So that sucks a little bit, but let's just have a look, see. Where do our migrations go? So migrations will go into the DB migrate folder, and they kind of look like this. So you have class, which is the name of the migration we're trying to add, and it's a GitLab database migration. And then you have an up or down, which defines what happens when you roll forward, or you roll back, or just in some cases it could just be a change. This is adding an index. There is an up or a down, but if you're just adding columns, you would just use a change, and that says add column. What's the column table that's going into? What's the name of the column? What type of data is the column? Is there a default, and is it nullable? So ours would look like something like add column, merge requests, first contribution, Boolean, default false, null false. Let's see if I can get my GDK actually running while it's updating. Let's do this on the stream. Shell. It's showing that everything's down as we kind of expected. Start that. That seems to be starting kind of okay. Take it again. Things seem to be happily starting. Uptimes are incrementing. If ever you're trying to start your GDK and you're not sure what's happening, that's what you're looking for there, is you're looking for this time here to be steadily incrementing. If that time is resetting or anything, then that means that service isn't particularly healthy. So you can always do that with a watch, and that will highlight those fields for us, and we can see that they're comfortably incrementing. So we should be good. So let's pop back here and try to create this migration again. Okay, that seems to have happily created something, and here we go. We've got our migration file has been created for us. Fantastic. I mentioned we could just pinch Lee's, and this was done by Lee. We can pinch Lee's change here, pop that in there. Anything else that was in here, lock retries, because we want to make sure this gets retried. If it couldn't do it, we can probably remove some of the boilerplate too. And there's our migration style guide, link to that. So if you're ever not sure about migrations and what you need to do, there's a good place to look. And that's actually the page I was looking for earlier, which gives us the bundle exec Rails generate migration name here, but our one worked fine there. And the only thing, yeah, we can remove this boilerplate also. There we go. So there's our migration. What I'm going to do before I run any migrations, let's just see how my updates going on in the background. Okay, there's already just been a couple of migrations ticking over in the background. So do a DB migration. This may indeed actually do our migration. Our migration may have already been done because my update's ticking over in the back end and in the background, and that might have happened while I was creating the file. So let's just see what happens. GDK is still up and running. And something is using my machine pretty hard at the moment, which is fine. But okay, migration seems to have completed. No massive scary errors. Let's see what structure SQL looks like. Merge requests table. And of course, nothing's going to have done anything because we didn't change anything there. So let's just actually set this migration up the way we wanted it. I forgot that I spoke about it, but I didn't actually do it, which always sucks. And default was there. Save that again and go back. And okay, that seems to have gone through again. Let's just double check. We should have let's double check. 40 downtime. Just scanning through the migration style guide, just making sure that I have everything. So I haven't gotten fiddled with the user preferences table. Yes, there's just the one in there. It's the usual raft of DB changes here. So potentially going through it again. Application settings changes. And limits changes, user details changes. Okay, so I think what's happened here is because I ran that migration with the old data in it, it didn't rerun it. So migration. So the version number that we're going to use here is that one that was generated for us there, which is today's date. Time and it. That should get rid of fields. Well, should get rid of the thing. Now I'm going to do this in the main database because it's not a CI thing. So just about that, because we split the GitLab databases several months back into a main database and a CI database. And that doesn't particularly like it. And it's possible because the column doesn't exist, which is fine. That should be good. So therefore, we should then be able to run a db migrate, which should go back and create that for us. We may need to just delete this file, but let's see. Let's give it a go. Okay, that seems to have passed without choose. DB structure again. Now remember, we're looking for a change in the merge requests table. roll that one back again. I may just need to remove the schema migrations file from the schema migrations folder. Just to tell Rails that we want to undo that migration. So now Rails doesn't think that it's done that migration, so it should try to apply it again. Okay, that seems to have gone through. Let's see if field has appeared. Amazing. It's not done that at all, which is not great, but that's fine. We'll figure this out, figure it out together. Let's see. Yeah, we're still not seeing the field in there, which sucks a little bit. That's fine. Let's do a there is a command we can run that will regenerate our schema. So let's potentially run that and see what happens. It's either going to blow up at us or that's doing a database reset for us. Yay! Okay, and this is going to completely recreate our GDK databases. Well, that's at least for the tests there. And it looks like it's thrown our migration away, which is fine too. That file exists, that file exists. Okay, so, okay, there we go. And our migration has actually gone through this time because we've added the merge requests column to the tables. So now we should find that in structure. SQL, there we go, yay. Cool, now we have a first contribution table, well, field in our table, which is nice. So if we go back to our merge request, don't know what changes I've done here. if we go to our merge request field, here's where we have the different attributes on here, and we have there's different fields that live in here. Okay, and different changes. So there's a so we can say validates. This is validates. That checks to see that, well, that runs a validator on it. Once we've added it, let's add that. Okay, and that should be automatically available in our model. Okay, so now if we go back to that first contribution, we'll leave that gate there. Now what we want to do is we want to check so currently when this merge request is closed, we check to see if there are any that have been merged. Okay. But what we want to maybe do is when this merge request closes, before we transition it to closed or merged, we want to then go and set the fact that this one is a first contribution. So where would we change that? That would be some sort of transition, state transition. So we've got our state definitions here. Available states are whatever's available as part of being an issuable, as well as being merged or locked. Okay, so here's our state thing. So if we close, mark as merged, moves to merged, reopen, lock, unlock. All right, so how does a merge request state change? So we've got this state machine thingy running. There's some various states here. So somewhere around the transition, do that. After the transition, check something here. Now we wanted to do that check before we make that transition, because at that point we will still know whether this currently qualifies as we can reperform that check that we had before. So that's after. Just having a look here. So how does this transition stuff work? Is this a thing or is this a Rails thing? Okay, state machines. Okay, so transitions seem to be a Rails thing. Okay, so these seem to be a Rails thing. So how do they work? Okay, so state machines. Yeah, we've got these things. And that's using the out of interest. Let's just have a look at our gem file. So it's not using that gem. We are how are we doing that? State eventable. That sounds interesting. So great. That just says we've got events. All right. Do we have anything else that says let's merge this? Methods have we got here? So this is one of the first times I've ever actually delved directly into merge requests specifically. So it's interesting to see what's happening here. All right, still looking at a whole bunch of refs here, validations. Checking for diffs, which is pretty important for our. Okay, so here we create a merge event, okay, which creates an event on our project where our target is done. This is merge bill. Closes issues, mentions issues, checking the namespaces, merge commit messages, squash commit messages, settings. Documents. Checking for ports or anything. So where's that merged at? So we're looking for merge event, really, I think. Okay, and then now we're into some private methods. We're still not seeing anything jump out at me. So, all right, at this point, I need to do a bit more digging just to figure out exactly how that state model works. And yeah, what I will do is I will keep the issue. Let me just pop the issue onto this onto the stream here. I will keep the issue updated with my findings as I go along, and hopefully I will be able to put an MR up shortly, which will figure this particular one out. I also need to not just create the MR, but also figure out how to test said MR. But that's definitely doable. So yeah, if you're interested in how I figure this out, I will keep this issue running. There's the issue there popping up. I'll keep this issue running with a bit of running commentary as to how I go and figure it out. And yeah, please do follow along. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to reach out to me on Discord or in the issue itself. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this has been somewhat interesting or useful to yourself. If not, that's okay too. Sorry for that. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers.